The real estate winds are shifting and people want to know what is going on in this real estate market. Is it good for the buyers? Is it good for the sellers? Is it hot? Is it cold? And emotions are starting to run a little hotter than normal because people aren't sure what to expect. So in this video, I want to share with you some factual things that you can cling to so we can push aside that fear, focus on these facts, and hopefully you can make a better decision for yourself and for your family. Hi, I'm Jill Thomas, and each week I bring new videos about what it's like to live here in the Sunshine State, and especially the Sarasota Bradenton area. And then of course, I like to talk about real estate and share with you things like this. Statistics, factual things, so you guys can focus in on what's most important to you. So if you've been thinking about buying, selling, making a change, buying an investment property, what have you, then this might be a really good channel for you. So be sure to tap that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and keep watching. And then when you're ready, please give me a call. Text, email me, whatever it takes, reach out to me, because then I might be able to answer some other very specific questions for you and answer those things that are kind of tailor-made for you and your situation. I'm definitely here to help. There might be some sellers out there that feel like, man, I really missed the boat. I should have already sold my house. I could have sold it for top dollar and have money in the bank. I missed my opportunity. There's buyers who might be thinking, oh man, I really missed the boat. I should have bought when I could have. Interest rates were so low. Now they're going up. What am I going to do? And there's a lot of other thoughts and feelings in between and mixed in with all of those. So like I said, that's why in this video, I want to share with you some really solid facts so you can take away from it what you want, so you can make the best decision for yourself. And maybe it still is a good time for you to sell, or maybe you should wait. Maybe it's still a good time for you to buy, or maybe you should wait. But instead of letting all those other voices in your head, family and friends telling you what to do, and sometimes hearing commentary on the news and different other sources, they all get jumbled up in your head. Here's some facts you can really think about and process so you can make the decision. Number one, statistics. Okay, so now we're going to dig into these facts. Now, all these statistics that I'm using cover both Sarasota and Manatee Counties. And here with this system I'm using, it says Northport, Sarasota, Bradenton, but it's really the two counties. The system I'm using is not accessible to the public. It's because I pay my dues as a real estate agent. So it's through the Florida Association of Realtors. It's a nice interactive system here where I can pull up these statistics and put in different date ranges and things like that. So I'm pulling all properties, homes, condos, townhouses, villas, everything in these two counties at all price points. So I'm not pulling out less expensive properties or pulling out more expensive properties. So the first section we're going to look at is active inventory. How many homes or properties are on the market? So let's look at today, July of 2022, almost 4,400. Now I'm going back 6 years to July of 2016. So there are 6,850. So back then, 6,850, today, 4,400 basically. And of course, we can see how the inventory goes up and down. And then it took a steep dive here. And you're going to see that the increase in the inventory happens during peak season, during our winter months, January, February, March here. Then it kind of dips down. Lowest time in September, comes up January, February, March again, comes down. Dips in September, January, February, March again, dips down, but then it dip. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a climb. So we're still very low on the inventory, just over 4,000 properties. Okay, so the next category we're going to look at is average sale price. So today, the average sale price is $622. Again, these are all types of properties, all types of price points. I did not pull out any outliners or anything. This is just everything together. This is the average sale price. So $622, back in the day, it was $321. So $300,000 more on average. And you can see it kind of has little ups and downs, little dips. It wasn't a straight trajectory, if I'm saying that word right. And then it kind of did bounce up a bit, but then it came down a little, came up, it's coming down. So the next few months will definitely tell a more detailed story of what's going on. Okay, the next set of statistics we're going to look at. This next chart has to do with the percentage of cash buyers in our community. We definitely have a strong number of cash buyers around here. So at our peak, let's see, this was in April of 2022, 55.6% of all buyers were cash. Now, again, because I'm doing all types of properties in all areas, if we were to dive in a little deeper, we would see that usually condos have more cash buyers than single family homes. And there's certain areas too where there's more cash buyers over others. So these are super broad numbers, but I think it's enough for you to kind of understand, get your head wrapped around these facts so we can tackle those fears that you might be having. So over 55% here, currently 47.4. So we're still close to 50%. And as you can see, over the years, sorry, my dog's barking over there. Over the years, it wasn't unusual for it to hit that 50%. Otherwise, a lot of it was right around 40%. More or less. Back in, let's see, this low area, June of 2020, COVID was out. We were locked down, 32.4%. That was the lowest that we'd seen. Prior to that, 35.8, it looks like. So that's what we're looking at with our cash buyers. Okay, our next chart has to do with closed sales, but I'm gonna move this over here because otherwise it gets in the way. Okay, so in July, we had 1,800 closed sales. At the peak in 1 month, we had 3,400 closed sales. Not quite twice as many as what we've had here in July, but pretty strong. So 3,400. Now let's look back a bit. Here, May of 2019, very strong, 2,500 at the low end, close to 1,200 there. Let's see, this is 1,300 6 years ago. 1,771. So as you can see, our number of closed sales is more in the average range as we look back about 6 years. So we're kind of on target there, nothing too extreme one way or the other. Okay, our next chart. Median percent of original list price. I also like to refer to this as the list to sale price ratio. And really what I'm saying is how much are homes going for in relationship to the list price? Are people paying full list price? Is it 100%? Is it less? Is it more? Now I'll tell you a story in a second. So right now we're still at 100%. Here 100.2, but of course we saw this huge increase. So 6 years ago, 95%, sometimes a little bit less than that, but not much, and 94.7. So, 95% was a solid number. 95, I tell people back in the day, 95, 96, sometimes 97% was the list to sale price ratio. Now I got licensed in 2008, crazy times, lots of listings, very few buyers, opposite of what we're going through right now. The list to sale price ratio was in the 80s. As soon as we came out of that, it was definitely in the 90s, and it's been there most of my real estate career. So as we can see that as long as a property is priced well, it's going to sell close to that list price. If it's inflated, if that price is really high, most likely it won't sell at all. Buyers just don't want to overpay, or sometimes they're gun shy about putting in an offer that's 15% less than the list price. They just figure seller's not serious, so they just skip it. So that's what we see a lot of really in the last, really the last 6, 7, 8 years is that's kind of been the mindset of those buyers. Okay, our next chart is the median sale price. So we had the average sale price, median sale price. The numbers are going to be a little bit different on how those numbers are crunched, but the line really looks the same. It's steadily going up with some little tiny dips and increases here from June to July, a tiny dip, but not much. We've had little tiny dips all along. So like I keep saying, the next few months, as it goes past and we look backwards, that's really where the story is going to be told with what's happening. Okay, our next chart is month supply of inventory. So currently we have 2 months of inventory as of July of 2020. Now back in July of 2016, it was at 4 months and it came up just over 5, back to 4, 5, 4, 5. Now let's see, can you guess which months without without looking there, I can't cover it up with my hand. Of course, I tried to do that. Which months do we have more inventory? Well, it's during our peak season, because when people come down, that's when they're going to list their properties, get going. They figure there's more people down here, people on vacation, more people escaping the winter for a month or so. And so that's usually when we see an uptick in that inventory. So drop down to 4 months, 5 months, 4 months, over 5 months, but then down, 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 down. Now, what's really important to know about months of inventory is that's the strongest indicator of whether or not we are in a buyer or seller market. If the inventory is at 6 months or around 6 months, sometimes maybe 5 to 7 months, that's considered a balanced market between buyers and sellers. And so everything's kind of even Steven. When it's less than that, less than the 5 or 6 months, is considered a seller's market. If it's more than that, it's considered a buyer's market. And here's why. If no new listings came on the market and the inventory stayed the way it was, and we had the same, that demand of buyers coming through, that inventory would dry up in 2 months as of, with using the number from July. So that's why that's considered a seller's market, because there's not a lot of inventory to keep up with the demand. So here we are. So really over the last 6 years, it definitely skewed more to a seller's market, touched on maybe being slightly balanced, but for the most part, it's definitely been a seller's market for quite a while. Now, of course, back when we had half a month of inventory, it was very, very much a seller's market. So we're seeing that come up a bit. So it kind of, we're starting to feel that relief that it's not quite so extreme as what it's been. Okay, now here's our final one. Last but not least, our median time to contract. Okay, so in July, sorry, my dog is barking like crazy today. Homes, the median time they stayed on the market till they went under contract was 9 days. 5 days here, 6 days. Honestly, I felt like during the last 18 months or so, it just felt like it was hours, not days, 6 hours, 5 hours, but very short period of time. And it still is a relatively short period of time, because 9 days compared to 62 days from June of 2020, even prior to COVID, June of 2019, we're looking at 60 days or so. February of 2019, the quickest was back in November of 2016 at 38 days when we look back farther. So we feel like we maybe can be catching our breath a little bit with the buyers and looking at properties, but yet 9 days, even though it's 15 days, historically speaking, that's still a very, very short period of time. So that's where we're at with these statistics. So next, we're going to talk about hang on a second. Okay, my dog is barking and she wants to go chase some lizards. But what we're going to do next is take these statistics and we're going to talk about how we can apply them to help both buyers and sellers translate this over. So maybe they won't be so fearful. It gives you something concrete to think about, and we can focus on the facts and break down this information to see what will best work for you. Number 2, sellers. Okay, so I just spent like 10 minutes going through all of these charts to help describe things. So now let's break it down so maybe you can process a bit and kind of sort through all those thoughts in your mind, everything that you just heard, to see whether or not it's a good time for you to still sell, or maybe you should wait. Now, for those sellers who might be thinking, or potential sellers, you folks who own properties here, and you think, man, I really missed the boat. I should have sold before. And there was so much hype going on. You list a house, you get 20 offers in 24, 48 hours. We combed through all that. It was a lot happening. It was just craziness. I had a seller go, oh my gosh, this was fun. I wish it was like this every time I had to sell a property. Of course, to get those great offers, get so many showings. It was quite an incredible situation. Well, we're not seeing it quite like that anymore. So now a seller is kind of like thinking, okay, is it worth it? What's going to happen? What kind of money am I going to get? And you feel like that moment in time has passed and you missed out. Okay, so again, this is why we got to focus on the facts. Sure, it's not all this craziness right now when you go to list a property, but as we saw, the median sale price, the average sale price, is still so strong, even compared to 6 or 9 months ago, a year ago. All you need is one solid, able, and willing buyer. You don't need 20 of them to get a good offer. Now, will your home sell for $20, $30, $40, $50,000 over list price now? Probably not. But if you just list it smartly, and that's why we had those list to sale price ratios, you can still get a really strong number. So if you feel like you've missed the boat on this, I don't think you have, because when we look at these numbers, the numbers are still strong for sellers. That has not changed at all. And like I said before, because we're at 2 months of inventory, it's still a seller's market. So a lot of things are still in the seller's favor. Number 3, buyers. Okay, so I just talked about sellers and how everything's still pretty good for them. So you buyers might think, oh, geez, Jill, like, thanks a lot. You know, it was like throwing cold water on me. It's not a good time for me to buy, you know, and there's a lot of things we could say about that, but there's a lot of good things happening for buyers too. And so let's talk about those things. First, because things have settled down a bit, really one of my favorite things is that you don't have to go crazy, see a house in the first 5 hours, write some absurd offer with crazy terms that only favor the seller, you know, feel like you're kind of losing out in some respect. You can sleep on it now. I mean, how nice is that? I don't have to tell people, gee, you know, this house just came on the market today. It's a Wednesday. You're flying in Friday. The house is going to be gone. You either have to put an offer on it today or forget about it. Or when people come to town now, before there was nothing for me to show them. It was really hard. And now it's like, yeah, let's go look at some properties. It might not all be exactly what you want, but at least there's something to look at. So all that's really good right now for buyers. I'm so excited that we're kind of normalizing a bit and things are settling down. Okay, so then buyer, you might be saying to me, yeah, okay, that's great, Jill, but the interest rates have gone up. And so that might diminish your purchasing power. And I get that. But first, let's think about why they went down without getting super technical. We were in this pandemic. That played a part in it, and things that the government was doing to drop those interest rates. And so there was another price that was being paid in order for us to be in that position. So I don't anticipate interest rates dropping again like that anytime soon. If they do, most likely we're going to be paying some other price to go along with it. That was not sustainable, just like us being shut down like we were was not sustainable, things like that. So sadly, yes, the interest rates have gone up. Historically, they're still relatively low, and most likely they will not go down like that again or ever again, especially anytime soon. Again, if they do, something else is going on that's probably not favorable. It's not going to all be roses and stuff all the time with those lower interest rates. So here we are. I think it's just kind of where we're at right now. And so again, that's just a fact. It's sort of here to stay. Okay, I already kind of touched on this, but like I said, the one thing that's really nice is that when you write an offer, you can have more reasonable terms, and not all these terms are going to only favor the seller. A lot of buyers were waiving inspections, they were waiving appraisal contingencies, and what that means is if a house appraises for $30,000 less than the list price, that buyer has to bring $30,000 to closing. That's a lot of cash out of pocket, in addition to what else you weren't financing. So people were bringing a lot of cash to the closing table. Well, now, even though interest rates are up, you could use some of that cash that maybe you would have had to have used in order to win the offer. You could maybe buy down the interest rate a bit. So there's other things you can do, and I don't think it's going to cost $30,000. I'm not a lender, I'm not a mortgage person, but I've never seen $30,000 go towards buying down a rate. You could talk to a lender about that and the pros and cons of doing that, but there's a lot of things happening that's definitely more favorable for the buyer, or at least less risky of what we've been seeing in the last couple of years that went along with those lower interest rates. Now, a quick word of caution to buyers. Yes, things are starting to normalize a bit. Yes, things are not always 100% in the favor of the seller. I love that. But remember, like I said, we're still a seller's market. There's 2 months of inventory. So please don't think that just because we're sensing these shifts, we went from one extreme to now kind of it leveling out a bit. It doesn't mean, well, hey, now sellers move over. I'm a buyer and I'm in control. Okay, it's still, you still have to approach it a little bit with the idea that there's not a lot of inventory out there. And if you don't want that house, give it time. That seller might get a little bit more realistic, reduce the price or whatever, somebody else is going to buy that house sooner than later. So it's not that all these terms are going to totally favor you over a seller, or nor can you come in with these super low offers and say, yeah, I'm going to offer 25% less than list price. Even if maybe that's what it's worth, most likely a seller is not going to sell at 25% off list price, because if they were willing to do that, they just would have dropped it maybe 10% off of where they were at and try to get still a little bit stronger number. So buyers, just be careful that you're not too aggressive thinking that the tables have turned. They have not turned 100%, or they haven't done a 180 at all. Number 4, pricing. Okay, now let's talk about pricing for a second, because even how we look at numbers, like if you were to list a house, or if you wanted to look at the value of a home, if you wanted to put an offer in on it, how I'm looking at comps is a little different than what I have in the past. Right now, I am really focusing a lot on what's active and pending, because that really is going to tell a very detailed story. So let's say there's a house down the street from you that's very similar to yours that's on the market, and it's listed for $500,000, and it's been on the market for 4 or 5 weeks already. Maybe that list price is a little too high. And so okay, maybe I need to come in a bit lower than that. If the house went pending right away, let's say it went pending in a week at $500,000, then maybe that $500,000 is a solid number and a great starting point for you to list the house at. And we can flip, turn that table and say the same thing for buyers. Let's look at the actives and pendings. Then when we do look at the solds, I try to only go back about 30 days. Much farther than that, the numbers might be a bit skewed, and I don't think that's very helpful. Sometimes I might go back about 45, 60 days just out of curiosity, but I think just going back 30 days or a few weeks is the best way to approach that. I just heard a statistic that during the peak craziness there, that about 35% of the time the homes were not appraising. So I just mentioned how buyers were bringing cash to closing to cover that gap for the homes that didn't appraise at purchase price or higher. So 35%, that's a lot, so that's over a third. Right now, it's about 7% of the homes that are not appraising, and historically, the average is between 3 and 5. So all those things really actually favor both buyer and seller. So that's good news for everybody, because that just sort of eliminates that aspect of potential headache, because it's really a challenge when a property doesn't appraise, because then we have to come back together and renegotiate. And sadly, sometimes those deals fall apart when that happens. Number 5, distressed properties. So distressed property means something that's just not a typical sale or resale. It might be a foreclosure or a short sale. So I've heard people say, well, I'm just going to wait for the wave of foreclosures to hit the market, and I'm going to take advantage of one of those properties. Well, right now, there's no indicators at all that point to that happening. And here's a few reasons why. Number 1, as you see in our area, in our marketplace, so many properties are paid with cash. So of course, if they're paid with cash, they're not going to be foreclosed on. So we're eliminating almost half the properties in our area from that even happening. Second of all, compared to 2007, 2008, all that craziness, 2006, there are so many more guardrails up in regards to lending. So we've got better, more qualified buyers getting mortgages. So as a result, that's going to greatly reduce the potential for foreclosures and short sales. And then finally, during COVID, people had an option, in some cases, to go into forbearance with their mortgage, meaning they could delay making mortgage payments. And it kind of came in different forms, depends on your lender. And then finally, let's talk about something called forbearance. This was a really hot term during COVID, and it was for people who had mortgages who thought maybe they couldn't make the payments. They could sign up with their lender where they could either delay making payments, put off making payments, maybe tacking payments onto the end of their mortgage. All the situations were really different. Well, I just heard some statistics, and I got to get some more details on this and maybe make an infographic for Facebook and Instagram, but that said that so many of these people never stopped making payments. Most people did. People caught up, made the payments, so they're all caught up with their mortgage. And right now, of all the people that really took advantage of that, less than 11% of them are still in forbearance, but it doesn't mean that they're all going to go get foreclosed on. So it's a pretty small number potentially of that happening. If people do get foreclosed on, it's going to be a small number. So we don't anticipate a large wave of foreclosures because of that, and because of COVID. Right now, there aren't many indicators or any indicators of that happening. Now, if any of you guys are privy to some other information about that, please put it down below or shoot me an email about that, because I'd like to know more if somebody does know more about that than I do. But generally speaking, we do not anticipate seeing lots of foreclosures hitting the market anytime soon. So in conclusion, let's stick with the facts. We are just starting to kind of slide back into what was considered normal prior to COVID. We don't see anything too extreme one way or the other. There's no indicators that prices are gonna drop or plummet because it's still a seller's market. There's still not enough inventory for the number of buyers that we have here. Could it go down a little bit? Yeah, maybe, but it might not. Or if it does, how much? I don't know, because then if interest rates go up more in the future, then any price reductions you might see, might all level out. So I don't think that that's going to be a really big thing, is seeing large drops in the prices. Something else too, even with new construction, the builders are a little bit more motivated to sell now, where before we had all these bidding wars and things like that on the lots. It was crazy. Okay, so that is no longer here with us, which thank goodness, because that was just horrible too for buyers. But this is what I'm seeing builders doing. Instead of dropping prices, they're just giving buyers more incentives. Historically, to get a $5,000, $7,000, maybe even $10,000 credit at closing from a builder was good. That was healthy. That was normal. Now I'm seeing larger contributions. They're gonna maybe buy down your interest rate. They're gonna give you more money to use in the design center. They're gonna give you some of those credits at closing to go towards your closing costs. So even the builders are sort of playing these different games. They're not messing with their sales numbers so much as they are things on the back end. So the perception is still that the numbers have not changed even with builders. So they're not dropping their prices either. Now, of course, if something happens again on a national or global level, just like we've been through here in the last 2 years or so, of course, things can change and then all this is kind of out the window. But again, let's focus on the facts. Let's look at these numbers. Let's look at the statistics and then go from there. Now, like I said before, if I can't give you the website or let you log in with my username and password to use those sun stats that I just had, but I do have those charts printed out. I have them as JPEGs. So if anybody wants to see those and study them a little bit more in detail, just shoot me an email at jill@jillwillsell.com and I'll be more than happy to forward all of those to you. I'm happy to give that to you so you can dig in a little bit more on your own and you can make better decisions for yourselves. And like I said before, give me a call if there's anything I can do for you or help answer any of your questions. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great day.